Ladies and gentlemen, students and faculty, welcome to the second in the Common Thread series on cultural inclusion. Each module is designed to build greater understanding and respect for the people we work with every day, to acknowledge and appreciate differences, to recognize and counter biases, whether conscious or otherwise, and to make UAB a campus where everyone feels they have a place, a voice, and that they belong. Let's explore some perspectives. I feel that the only opinions that are valued are those offered by people who have advanced degrees. I've been in this department for 20 years, but because I'm staff and not faculty, my input isn't seen as important. I've heard colleagues comment that people who hold conservative political beliefs aren't smart or just aren't paying attention. I feel like I have to hide my real political preference. I'm an older employee, and new leadership has made it clear that I'm no longer part of the team because I'm at the higher end of the age range. I feel stuck, humiliated, and frustrated. Welcome to Module B, Understanding Bias, the Path to Greater Self-Awareness. Bias. In simple terms, it's a mental association or preference. Many biases, like ones for or against certain types of food, are completely harmless. Others, less so. Everyone has biases. Bias can color our thoughts, inform our actions, and affect our attitudes. Bias is a function of the human mind. And it comes in two distinct forms, conscious and unconscious. First, there's conscious bias. A bias that we are familiar with is a conscious bias, a set of preferences or mental associations for or against people or things of which we are fully aware, like the enjoyment of a particular climate or a type of movie, or a feeling of discomfort when in a crowd. Then there's unconscious bias. An unconscious bias is a bias of which we are less aware. It can be habitual and unintentional, a byproduct of where we are born or how we are raised, the particulars of our culture, and any number of other emotional and social influences. Recognizing our unconscious or implicit biases is an important step on the road to greater self-awareness and the subject of today's module. Biases. They exist and we all have them, even when we believe we don't. No matter how well educated we are, no matter how open-minded, no matter how egalitarian in outlook or deliberate in approach we believe we are all subject to subtle, often unconscious biases. My experience has been that people who say out loud that they have no biases are the ones who are most likely to be in the most denial, because they really believe that they're objective, so they see their biases as truth. Here are some factors to consider. 1/10 of a second. That's how long it takes for us to form an opinion, positive or otherwise, about a new acquaintance. Here's another factor. People tend to prefer being around those who are most like themselves in terms of race, nationality, or religion, even when they think they don't. While UAB seems to care about a visual commitment to diversity and inclusion, the department in which I work feels like an insider's club, and I'm not an insider. What happens if you're not in the club? We all harbor both positive and negative associations about groups of people based on characteristics such as race, ethnicity, size, and appearance. In other words, we are all prone to stereotyping. Over time, stereotyping, a form of bias where we assume all people of a certain group are the same, can become so ingrained and habitual that it's essentially invisible to those who rely on it. With invisible stereotyping, we automatically begin to categorize individuals as members of certain social or ethnic groups. When this happens, we trigger all the thoughts and feelings associated with those groups, positive, negative, or otherwise, and these associations may influence our perceptions as well as voluntary and involuntary discriminatory practices. This subtle, pernicious sort of bias can be poisonous to your organization. It results in differences in treatment and pay scales for employees and colleagues, resulting in much higher turnover rates and higher levels of job dissatisfaction. I've seen microaggressions, negative verbal or nonverbal behaviors within my department that rise to the level of bullying. Even when this behavior isn't targeted at me, I feel demoralized and unsafe. I would leave UAB if I weren't the trailing spouse. But because my husband works here, I feel like I have no choice but to stay. People don't talk about instances of microaggressions, discrimination, or harassment because they fear retaliation. This leads to the false idea that aggressions, harassment, and discriminations aren't taking place. Implicit bias can undermine an organization's effectiveness, cohesion, and ability to solve problems. An attending physician with whom I worked seemed to have made a decision about me before he even met me, based on my background and ethnicity. His treatment of me was severely traumatizing, and I'm seriously considering changing my original career choice. In spite of the fact that my department is more than 50% female, there are no women at all in leadership positions. Several young female faculty have left in the last 6 months because the department is not supportive of creating work-life balance. Belonging is more than celebrations and events. It's more than just skin color, gender, religion, ethnicity, or background. It's about feeling valued as an employee. You can have all the events in the world, but feeling valued at my job, it's what's missing for me.